Hello, travel biz owner. Welcome to my corner of the travel industry, the Strategic Travel Entrepreneur Podcast. If you're ready to have fun, be inspired, get clarity, and take action in your travel business, then you're in the right place. Let's jump in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I hope you can tell the excitement in my voice. If you haven't already told or noticed the past couple of weeks, we are in the midst of Travel Industry Black Friday. So actually, today is Black Friday. If you are listening on is it the 29th? Are we 29th? Yes. So also, happy post-Thanksgiving. I hope you are in a lovely food coma today if you were able to celebrate Thanksgiving, everybody. Today is a huge day. I mean, you know that there's been special offers and promotions going around for Travel Industry Black Friday. So if you haven't taken advantage of those just yet, we only have a couple more days left of the Black Friday event. So head on over to the show description. There's going to be a link, and you're going to be able to take a look at both the different promotions that are happening in the industry. And then also we have a special goodie bag just for you that is filled with lots of different free resources for you to also maximize your travel business. So wanted to make Travel Industry Black Friday a little bit more accessible. So if you don't have the budget just yet, definitely grab things off the goodie bag. And if you are ready to pull the trigger and make things happen, then we have those amazing promotions available for you also this week. If you didn't notice too, the past couple of weeks, we've been featuring some of our presenting partners. So we had Lori Gold of Explore More Mexico. We also had LaDonna Allen of Costa Cruises. And I'm so happy to introduce David Shull of Tern. I know many of you know about this new technology that is hitting the pavement full speed ahead, running within the travel industry. David was actually on the Travel Tech Audio Summit earlier this year, so I'll go ahead and link that up because we are going to be diving into like nitty gritty. So if you need a little bit more of the basics, head on over to the summit. But without further ado, welcome David to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Rita. It's so good to be back, and it's kind of fun to think about how much things have changed since the Travel Tech Summit in March. And yeah, it's just such an exciting time. It's Black Friday. Like it's going to be a fun conversation, I think.
I know. I mean, I am so pumped. Black Friday, and we had a recent episode talking about like Black Friday promotions that travel advisors can put on for their own clients. Like I just feel like this is a really fun, festive time of year. I know not everybody's a Black Friday person, but I definitely love having fun and scoping what offers are out there too. So I can't wait to dive in to a little bit more about Tern, especially since you had a recent white paper come out, which like highlights the big three. Well, I don't know if that's what you would call it, but that's what I'm going to call the big three components of Tern. For somebody that might be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. What is Tern so we can get that right off the bat?
Yeah. So we think about Tern as the kind of all-in-one system that the travel industry has been waiting for. We started the company about 2.5 years ago after attending the American Society of Travel Advisors conference and talking
Mhm.
to travel advisors, agency owners, suppliers, and everybody told us they had to juggle all of these different tools to run their business. We kind of experienced firsthand the power of working with the travel advisor and really kind of walked away from that conference with the belief that if you could empower the travel industry with world-class technology, that it would be have huge opportunities for growth that would help these kind of small business owners spend more time on the things that they care about and that they really love and not having to fight their technology. And so with Tern, we started out by building tools for the individual advisor, itinerary builder, CRM, credit card authorization, task management, emails, really the best in class system. But the vision has always been to actually unify the stack. This is something we're
Mhm.
learned very early in on the kind of travel industry is that there's all these different layers. And those layers are what make the travel industry kind of so special and so powerful and how it can connect people to people around the globe. But the approach that technology providers had taken was that every layer had to have its own tech stack, right? You had the
Right.
agency owners with their own CRMs that didn't talk to the tools the advisors were using and that didn't talk to the tools that the suppliers were using. And really, the vision for Turn has always been how do we build one unified platform that really can supercharge the efficiency of every layer of the stack by really supercharging the connections between each of those layers. And with this white paper and some of the recent updates that we've launched, we're really taking a pretty big step towards that. And it's a pretty exciting time.
Yeah, I like you said connection, and I'm like, do you know how many years we've been talking about tech tools not integrating with each other and the frustration there's been with like just even simple API, not not having the ability to have simple API talking to everybody.
It really was kind of surprising. Like I said, we're technologists. I spent 8 years building a tech company called Handshake, turned that from an idea in a living room in northern Michigan to the second largest professional network in the US with a team of incredible people. And we started learning about the travel industry and we were sort of blown away by like how
Mhm.
far behind it was. And so it's really fun to be able to combine some of these the passions that we have for building tech, but also combine that with our passion for travel and kind of connecting with people. And it's a pretty special industry to be building in.
Yeah, yeah, which that's a really great segue because before we get into the white paper, I also wanted to touch on Tern, I know, was born out of frustration on a trip that you had that you weren't using a travel advisor for. And so it's kind of like almost this full circle moment into not being involved in the world and like being so immersed in the world. So now that you have been in here for a couple of years, are speaking day to day with different travel pros and travel industry leaders, like how do you really see the role of the travel advisor as we're wrapping up 2024 and heading into 2025?
Such a good question. And I get this a lot from people outside the industry. We talk to venture capitalists, we talk to kind of people
Mm,
in tech, and they're like, oh, like travel advisors. And some of them, particularly if they're more senior and experienced, get it right away. They're like, oh, yeah, like I use a travel advisor for all my trips and like see the value
right.
immediately. But particularly like a lot of the younger kind of associates or people that we're talking to in tech, like aren't using them and they're not as familiar with it. And I always say, travel agents had this perception of being like a booking service, right? Where you
Hmm.
could like have somebody book on your behalf. And what the big travel tech companies, the OTAs of the world, have done is they've really sort of like eroded that value. Right now, you can go
Right.
and if you know exactly what you want to book, you can book it pretty effectively for most, I'd say, kind of like standard travel. And so it makes sense, and to me, that like people assume that there's less value in working with a travel agent because it's saving them less time because they can book it themselves. What I say is that there's a reason that they kind of Asta and others have rebranded this as the travel advisor,
Hmm.
because it's really about when you don't know exactly what you're looking for, right? Or when things go wrong, right? Having somebody who's an expert and's got your back and is there to help you navigate the complexity of travel is invaluable.
Hmm.
People have limited vacation, especially here in the US. Like you have it's one of the biggest investments people will make in the year is their trips, and like having that almost kind of insurance policy of working with an advisor who's spending their career helping you get the most out of that investment, I think is a no-brainer. And so I use examples. I just got back from a conference and the Utopia of the Seas,
Mm,
and like navigating the number of different cabins and decks, and like you've got balconies that look inward and outward, and like
right.
and then you've got dining packages and you've got all these different things where as a frequent traveler, like I was overwhelmed, right? And you can imagine like if you're just a consumer trying to figure out a great trip for your family, like that's where an advisor can really add this value. So we're obviously like all in on the value that advisors can bring, both on the knowledge and experience perspective. But then the last point I always make is this is a deeply human thing, right?
Yes.
Like travel is special because you're going different places and you're experiencing different cultures and you have these kind of serendipitous moments with people. And I think when you leave, you want somebody that you can kind of talk to, and like you might be anxious, you might have all these emotions, you might be excited, right? And it's hard to connect with the computer on that emotional level. But like having an
Right.
advisor that you can just dream with, or that you can be like, oh, I'm so excited for this. Or like, hey, I'm actually like kind of anxious. Like I haven't flown in 10 years. Like, what should I expect? Right. That emotional component is uniquely valuable to connect with another human. And the same with going back. I mean, I think like you hear advisors who, you know, I always come back for trips and like I want to show everybody my pictures, but like my friends don't really want to see my pictures of like every trip. But like if you're that advisor, like just be that outlet, right? And now you've got that like connection where it's like I know that I like have somebody I can be excited about and I can share my
Right.
experiences and they want to know. So this like deeply human aspect is something that we think is going to give the travel advisor tremendous longevity, even in the kind of world of AI and evolving
Right.
tech.
I love that you mentioned that. I wrote down better human experience as you were talking because that I feel is what the role of technology is to be able to improve our human experiences. There's a lot of things as humans that we need to do, and there's also a lot of things that we don't necessarily need to do that technology can really automate and work in our favor on the back end. Whereas us and as humans can really focus on that relationship building piece and all those different nuance pieces, like you were mentioning, travel anxiety.
I think there's like so many examples of that, and as you're kind of saying that back, I was thinking this past weekend I was at a bike race in northern Michigan, and the day after the race, my kind of family, my brother-in-law, sister, their two kids, my mom and dad, like, and my wife and I, we all went for this walk, and we went to see this like old lighthouse. This
Mm.
lighthouse is like on the shores of Lake Michigan. It was built, I think, in the early 1800s, and they
Mhm.
had this like homestead in rural Michigan. And you just read about the life of these lighthouse keepers. Like you look at the fact that they had to like find these cedar trees and cut them down to make each individual shingle by hand. And like
Mhm.
my dad sort of made this offhanded comment where he's like, it's kind of crazy how much leisure time we have now, just as humans, right? The fact that like we get to travel, that we like get to like
Oh,
clock out at 5 o'clock, because it wasn't that long ago where like you
right.
had to work till sun up, sun down just to like stay alive in a lot of parts of the world. And I think a lot about that with the kind of tech evolution that we're going through right now, right? Like we're able to have this lifestyle that a lot of us have because of technology. And
Mhm.
technology means lots of things. It could be cars, it could be computers, it could be electricity, right? And I think as we look forward to things like artificial intelligence, it's going to be the next wave of that, right? Like it's the
Right.
artificial intelligence combined with the human that will open up more time for leisure. And that means
Right.
travel, which means like if you're in travel, like that's a pretty great place to be. So we think these macro trends that are at play here are going to be really positive for the industry, and we're really excited to be a part of it.
Oh yeah. I'm like, oh, AI diving into that conversation. But maybe we can leave it for a little bit
Yeah.
later because I'm like, it is just so incredibly helpful, especially if you're using it the right way and like maximizing and improving how you're using it. I'm like, that's a whole other part of the conversation. But I do want to jump into the white paper, which travel advisors, if you have not seen this, you can head over to Tern's website. There should be a pop-up, pretty simple to just sign into that and get access to it. But I loved this paragraph. Here's the reality. No matter how many upgraded or shiny new tools you adopt, as long as they're separate, they will never solve the underlying problem. Each system operates in isolation, creating data silos, manual data entry, and gaps in visibility. Advisors are left copying and pasting information from one platform to another, losing valuable time and often missing out on commissions. Agency owners have to piece together reports from multiple sources, only to find that the data is out of date by the time it's compiled. This fragmentation isn't just an inconvenience, it's actively holding your business back. I read that and I was like, mic drop. So, what does data fragmentation mean to you, mean to Tern, and what are you actively doing to eliminate this data fragmentation?
Yeah. So I'll maybe zoom out a little bit. One of the, again, I saw this like kind of interesting poster somewhere and it talked about the evolution of technology. And we've kind of gone through these like big waves, right? You had
Hmm.
the personal computer era, then you had the kind of internet era, then you had the cloud era, and now we're in kind of the AI era. And you could argue there's a mobile era in there too. Um, and I think what's really interesting about the travel industry is that they're sort of still straddling a little bit of that like cloud personal computer. We talked to agency owners who are still running local versions of their back office system, like on
Oh,
their own servers and
wow.
on computers. And they're like, how do I upgrade to the cloud? And you see providers out there that are kind of bragging about like, we're in the cloud now. And it's really sort of shocking. Then you also have the advisor tools, most of which are cloud based, thank goodness. But like all these different data elements are stored separately.
Hmm.
And as we look forward to really thinking through, like, how do we empower the advisor of the future? Data is the currency that's going to make or break like their
Right.
business, right? It's like, how am I connecting with my clients on a deeply personal level? How am I sending marketing content? How am I actually understanding my finances? How am I understanding like what my expenses are on a trip? Like all of these things, the answers to these questions are powered by data.
Mm-hmm.
And artificial intelligence is making it easier to query that data, but you have to have the data and you have to have data in a structured, clean way.
Right.
What we realized pretty early in the kind of deep dive that we did into the travel industry is that because advisors were using separate itinerary builder and a separate CRM, maybe they were using something else for the kind of financial tracking. Then they
Mm-hmm.
had a fourth system in many cases that they were entering those sales into. Um, None of that was talking to each other, and so and the glue that held it all together was manual data entry,
Mm-hmm.
which introduces error, which introduces risk, which is like, kind of complacency or forgetfulness, right? There's like massive challenges when you're holding together systems with manual data entry. And so, there's another path where like you could start to do APIs and automate those things. You alluded to this at the beginning. The problem with APIs is it's kind of like, I use this as an example of like having two ships that put a gangplank between each other. And
Yep.
like you're really just hoping that like they both sort of stay exactly where they are. Because if one starts to move and the other, then like it all breaks, right? And so like
Right.
APIs are great, we love them, but like they're not actually as good as just having one beautifully designed ship, right? And that's what we think it needs to be. Is like we need one ship. We don't want a flotilla of rifle rafts. We want one ship that can do all these different pieces. And by doing that, you actually start to create this data picture that lets you start to solve these other higher level challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we focus a lot on at Tern. And again, like this is sort of the call to action in the white paper is there's all this noise out there about like, oh, like tech companies should specialize and just do one thing really well. And like if the option is do many things poorly or one thing really well, it probably is better to do one thing really well than many things poorly. But our bet is that like you can actually do many things really well. And
Mm-hmm.
if you can do many things really well from a tech perspective, then you can build a better data picture and you can solve these inefficiencies that exist in the industry in a dramatic way. And if you solve these inefficiencies, then you remove a lot of the reasons not to work with a travel advisor. And that's where
Right.
we think we actually start to get a really cool tailwind where as a travel advisor, my kind of dream is like somebody comes to you and in 5 minutes after a call, you can have a totally custom itinerary built for them,
Mm-hmm.
right? How much time would that save? Oh, and by the way, like that's feeding your data agency layer. So you're getting commissions paid. We could speed up that whole pipeline. So you're getting paid commissions in days, not months. Like
Right.
there's so much that you can start to do if you have the right data. So anyway, that was a bit of a long-winded monologue, but it really, we think, is the thing that is holding the travel industry back and is what's made the OTA so competitive because they have one platform that does the whole thing with the data layer end to end. And travel agencies have not been able to compete with that because they're juggling 15 different systems, all with different parts of the data picture.
Right, because really it's an operational data tool is kind of how I might say, like in layman's terms, what Tern is, because this is one of the questions that I wanted to come to, also playing
Yeah.
devil's advocate. Tern is a lot of things, but there's definitely things that Tern isn't or won't be that you have no interest in becoming. So can we touch on that just a little bit too, just to help people identify like what Tern is? And what they should not be expecting out of Tern.
Yeah. I think our North Star is we want to empower the travel industry and the businesses that make it up,
Hmm.
right? And so I I'm always a little hesitant to be like we will or won't build this type of feature,
Uh-huh.
right? Um, and so who knows what we'll build, but it will be guided by that North Star of if travel advisors and travel agencies and their customers and partners, so I can think about that as suppliers and travelers, need tools, then
Hmm.
like we will probably move into that space with some sort of prioritization. Now, what won't Tern do? One of the things, and there's a lot of fear about this because historically technology companies have not been particularly friendly to the travel industry, is like, well, we'll Tern use our data and try and build a consumer facing app.
Mm.
We're all in on the travel industry. We're all in on travel advisors and travel agencies. And so we have no plans and we will not be going direct to consumer. Like we think
Hmm.
that we're in this industry for a reason. We believe in this industry and we believe that this industry combined with technology is the winning formula.
Hmm.
And so there's like other tools out there that are like doing trip planner AI tools for travelers and like we're going to be building AI tools for travel advisors and we think that's the winning formula. So when I think about that, it's like North Star is how do we build and supercharge the travel industry by empowering small and medium-sized businesses in the industry and helping them more efficiently connect with their travelers and more efficiently connect with suppliers. If it
Right.
fits in that realm, which is a pretty broad mandate, then like there's a good chance that we're either thinking about it or we may do it at some point. Doesn't mean we'll do it this year or next year or in 2026, but like could be 2030, right? That we'll be thinking about it. So a little bit of a vague answer, but it's always hard to like draw perfect boundaries. And I always hear, you listen to a lot of the other tech podcasts, right? And you hear other companies that are like, we will only do this thing. And I'm just like, we're too customer centric to say that, right?
Hmm.
Because like at the end of the day, if all of our customers are telling us that like this is what we need to run our business, like who are we to be like, well, actually, like, sorry, that's not in our plan. Like we're not going to build an email marketing tool. We're not going to build a website because like we just don't want to. I think that's a really bad way to run a business. So we try and listen, learn, understand what advisors need and build that in a timeline that makes sense.
Okay.
So again, vague answer, but like it's kind of how we think about it.
No, I like it. I like it. Thinking about that, the data points too, because what I see as Tern, especially after reading the white paper, is that obviously you have your relationship management capabilities, getting in inquiry forms, processing invoices, client communications. Then there's also the trip planning experience. So putting proposals together, adding offers and things together that can like really enhance the trip for somebody and being able to communicate with people while they're away as well. And then also there's like this third part that for some reason I don't think we really talk too much in the industry, which is really that data that we need to forecast and fill in the gaps and be able to make decisions on, do we keep selling ocean cruises or do we focus on river cruises or do we dump cruises after all because our safari and expedition trips are growing exponentially. So
Yep.
can we talk about that? Because I feel like that's part of the big agency launch that you recently had in features that help people like really operate their agency, but more tactfully.
Yeah. And this is, we're just getting started here, but it's already so exciting. So just for listeners who may not be familiar with Tern, right? We think a lot about this end-to-end flow. And when we think about that, it's not just for your advisors, not just for agency owners, but it's like trip inquiry form is submitted that the advisor is customized, automatically creates a trip. Within that trip, they're collecting their planning fee. From there, they're like building out this custom itinerary. They send it to the client credit card authorizations in like an industry leading way right through the system. Advisor goes out and books it. They're clicking marked as booked. That act of just clicking marked as booked, literally that's all it takes, submits the sale to the agency. Now so we're
Awesome.
taking this whole manual sales process and it's one click. The agency now has full insight into like not only what is coming in terms of like what are the travelers going on the next 12 months, but like what is the expected volume that we have for these different
Mm.
suppliers? What is the breakdown across, the dates? What is the expected commission based on the commission splits? And so you can start to see already that this really saves time. And because we've lowered the barrier of entry for advisors, this was one of the things that sold us many months ago. And the fact that we have to build the agency back office is we were talking to an advisor. We had just come out of talking with the host agency, and they told us they had millions of dollars sitting in this account of unclaimed commissions. We
Mm.
talked to an advisor, and they were like, "Oh, like, yeah, sometimes I don't submit my commission. Like, if I do a car rental and I'm going to get like $15, like, it's just not worth the hassle." And I'm like, "Whoa!"
Wow.
Like, this is an advisor choosing to leave money on the table because there's too much friction to report a sale. Like, something is broken in how this is working. And so with Turn, you're already seeing the fact that like we've eliminated that whole process. It's one click. We think that'll drive more payouts for agency or advisors. It helps agencies have better data. And you mentioned this data piece. We talked to another agency that we partnered with, and they're right on the precipice of getting this next commission tier with one of their suppliers based on their contract, right?
Nice.
And historically, that's like anxiety inducing. You're like emailing all your advisors to be like, does anybody have any of these like proposals out that we could like literally it would be worth it for the agency to pay an extra $500 for that, family to go on this trip, giving them a great discount just because it hits that tier and it makes everybody more money.
Hmm.
But in a previous world, everyone's using a separate itinerary builder. Like you have no idea what's in the proposal stage, what's not in the proposal stage. Like, so you're just kind of hoping that somebody reads that email. In the future, you can imagine going into Turn, being like, show me what proposals are out for this supplier. And like, cool, now I have the four agency or four advisors that I'm reaching out to be like, hey, we'll give you your clients a $500 thing if they book in the next 24 hours, right?
Mhm.
Like that's an example of we talk about the data and the action oriented kind of nature that the data unlocks that we think is only possible if your advisors are using the system to run their business and it's syncing automatically because it's the same system with your agency office. And that's just one of the examples that we think about as the type of operational gains that can happen and really cool experiences that can happen when you start to bring all these pieces together.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that portion because I was also thinking this past summer. Summer is typically a dip time, not for everybody, but it's typically a dip time where sales are a little bit slower just because there's a lot of people obviously traveling from the beginning of the year sales. And so I'm like, I feel like the technology that you're building slash or have built or recently launched helps for when like you have your goal. Like let's say your goal is to have $50,000 in income, not sales, because that's a separate number and you've fallen short for whatever reason it is in the summer, these tools are things that can help you pinpoint where it is, what your next sale might be, or like what might be the easiest sale for you, correct?
Exactly. And I'm going to go into like vision mode, not necessarily something we're going to build the next 12 months, but like
Yeah.
this is an example of where these all these pieces could start to come together to really transform the industry and drive more sales. So Tern has it built. We're the only platform out there that directly integrates with your email. We know advisors are getting hundreds of emails a day from suppliers. Buried in that mountain of information are probably some really cool offers that would fit and
Right.
maybe catalyze your clients to buy. Um, but it's a perfect example of a task that humans are not very good at, taking hundreds of emails a day and triangulate that across like potentially hundreds of different clients to be like,
Yep.
how do I individually connect the dots, right? So maybe in 2026, like Turn's just reading your email. It's using artificial intelligence. It has your full CRM data. It knows what clients have bought what types of trips. It knows when their next trips are. It knows like the last time they traveled. And so it might be able to say like, hey, you just got this sweet offer from Windstar. This couple went on a Windstar cruise 18 months ago. They have nothing else planned. Like maybe you should send this email to them that uses all the context about their previous travel, uses this context about this special that you just got, like a quick let me know if you're interested. And like all you have to do is review and click send.
Right.
Like, what would that do for your business? If you're a travel advisor listening, like what would that do for your business if like you just had that type of technology at your fingertips? Like that's what we wake up every single day and think about. And it's only possible if all the data is in one place.
Hmm.
You'll never be able to do that with API connections between 14 different systems. Like I guarantee you that. But if everything's in one place, it's structured well, and you've got people that are thinking about this, like you can do that. Like that's not outside the realm of possibility today.
Right.
Um, so anyway, sorry, I'm very excited about that because I think that's where,
Yeah.
again, you're delivering on this personal service, you're leveraging the relationships that you have, you're leveraging the context that you have, and you're delivering something that's a really, really special value to your customers, and it will help you drive more sales, right? That's what technology can do for the industry, we think.
I think like that's really at the core of it, especially if we're thinking about being a more strategic travel entrepreneur. That's what data does for you. It's not, I sometimes like to say data over drama because you might be thinking like, oh my gosh, like you get into this little circle of like, this is never going to happen for me, or I haven't done this, or I haven't done that. But then if you look at the data presents something different. Like, yes, you did make these sales this year. You're just short one sale, or you're just short two sales, or you're just short a group this year. And being able to use that strategically, not only to like, let's say you used this data for 2024, and now you're doing your strategic planning for next year, and you're like, this was an insane year, and I did not like this, or I love this. Like, what can I do differently to either produce more of this or produce less of this or different of this? So, if somebody's looking at their system in turn, like what numbers, what data points are available that they can look at to make some of these decisions?
Yeah, so we were launched probably a month and a half ago now. We have a whole dashboard and reporting section. So either as an agency owner or as an individual advisor, you can go in and you can see a breakdown of all your commissions. And so you can kind of track if I got paid, not got paid. If your agency is using it, those will sync automatically. But you also have a dashboard that shows you what you've got in terms of total volume. You mentioned that, what you're expecting in terms of commissions, what you've earned so far this year in terms of commissions, a breakdown of what suppliers you've sold the most. And then there's a few other kind of data points that you can access literally with the click of the button, all in one place. And we'll continue to add more and more reporting to that. But we've already found, advisors and agencies saying that just insights into that without having to do extra data entry, or it's really been helpful. We had
Right.
one agency owner that kind of in the process of moving to Tern discovered, I think it was $6,000 in unclaimed commissions, which for like unpaid commissions from the suppliers. And they were like, we've now recovered all of that, but like we didn't even know, right? Because we didn't, the way we were tracking it before. So it is an example where having insight into it, having good tracking kind of hygiene, but also having systems that don't make you enter it multiple places or multiple times, is really powerful and really
Mhm.
can help you start to operationalize your business in a pretty cool way.
Yeah, I love that you use the word hygiene because I'm like, this is things, it's kind of like brushing your teeth every morning, every night. Like you have to check these things, these metrics on maybe it's not every day, but at least like once a week, maybe once a month if you're just starting out. But you have to like look at these. You have to not be afraid of the number because I think like that's where a lot of it comes from is that we're scared of like, oh, the numbers aren't where I want them to be. Um, but you're never going to know and you're never going to be able to make like an accurate decision unless like you take a look at those numbers and be able to like carve the path out from there.
Exactly. If you don't have insight into it, and I love what you said, like data over drama, like there's been so many decisions, even just at the turn level, right? Running this business, that it's
Hmm.
like, oh, like this is my intuition. This is my thing. We start to pull
Yep.
the numbers. I'm like, we were talking the other day about what percentage of deposits happen more than a year out. And I was like, I bet most of them. Like I bet a lot of people are depositing. Turns out it's less than 15%. It was like so wrong, right? But like that's where
Oh,
data can help, right? And it helped
yes.
us answer some of these like product questions. So we think a lot about this to run our business. But again, it's like you have to have the data in a like way that you can use it. And we know that a lot of people in travel, they're in travel because they're creative and they love crafting these experiences and helping with
Right.
relationships. Like they don't wake up every morning being like, I hope I get to work with a spreadsheet today, right?
Right.
And so that's where the systems hopefully can do that behind the scenes, and like they can just surface the right information at the right time so that it can drive those actions without having to be cumbersome.
Yeah, and I love how you mentioned too, like there are certain decisions that we might need to make based off of intuition. The cool thing about that, because I'm all about conducting an experiment in your business, the cool thing about that happens after you conduct it is the data. Like
Exactly.
that's what I geek out on is like you have this new information to go off. Like, was that a flop or was that a huge win?
Exactly. It's cool too, like just the different like personality types. Like we're big fans of the Enneagram here at Turn, and I'm like a
Mm.
type 8, which is funny because I like am sort of obsessed with data, but I like lose track of where I got it. And so I like will use language like, oh, my gut is telling me, or my intuition is saying this. And I've got other people on my team who are very like, kind of type A, like very detailed data oriented,
Uh-huh.
and they're always like, well, we have to see like what the data says. And it's just funny how like those things can complement each other, but also like
Right.
create healthy tension. And it doesn't matter where you're on that spectrum, data can help, right? Like you either
Right.
crave it and you love it and you already know how valuable it is. But if you're more intuition kind of like driven, it can be a really good complement to like testing that or to helping you kind of prove your intuition right. Because it
Mhm.
could be that your intuition's right most of the time, but having the data will help you validate that and help you bring others along if you are on a team.
Right. I know that so we obviously will have a mix of between solo entrepreneurs and then also people who are running like full-blown agencies or they're just getting started with hiring either employees or ICs. And one of the things that I wanted to touch on is that on top of like all the other amazing operational things you can do with Turn is also that like team onboarding sense. And I feel like part of that is most likely due to your communities feature. And I'm thinking like SOPs, workflows, task sheets. So how exactly does that work? Especially, I feel like that's probably like the biggest hump for somebody who wants to start a team for some reason is that they're like, now I have to train them. And now they have to learn
Yep.
all the processes and do all the things that I do and I know.
Yeah. it's a huge barrier to people going on and start their own agency. And I think there's multiple flavors of that. There's like, how do I even train and onboard the team member? But then there's also like, how do I pay them? How do I keep track of all the
Yes.
data? And so this is where you really what we're trying to build with Tern is kind of a business in a box, right? And one of the
Hmm.
quotes that we have in the white paper is from Lauren,
Yeah.
and there's a much longer actually paragraph that goes along with that where she describes like I've been thinking about going out on my own for a long time, but it's always felt really daunting. And with Tern, I already know the system. I can like literally go in and create this agency and like it's all there. I know how to train people on it. So you already have this kind of like infrastructure that helps with like how much do I owe people? How do I track supplier payments? That like really helps. But one of the things that we heard, and this is what you were alluding to, Rita, is like you have a brand new advisor that's coming in. The travel industry is wild, right? There's like so much to learn. There's so many different suppliers and like what's an IATA number? And then it's also like you've got the agency and they're like, okay, like go create your trip request form, go create your terms and conditions, go create your um, library items, right? And like maybe they give them a Google Doc with all this stuff, go create your
Right.
email templates. But it's like, where do I get? Do I go buy an itinerary builder? Do I buy another CRM? Like, like there's this huge cold start problem. And so what we said was like, well, we're building this ability to collaborate and share content in turn anyway. Like, what if we just let agency owners build out a library of content,
Mm.
add people to the agency, and they default get access to all of it? And like they can create copies and customize if they want to. But like, how impactful would that be to the onboarding process? And so that's
Right.
exactly what we've done. And we've seen this really start to transform the new, especially new to industry onboarding, because they can start to come in and like they've got a business in a box. They've got their itinerary builder, their CRM, they've got their email connection, they've got their artificial intelligence, but now they also have the forms that their agency owners have created for them. Like
Right.
they can add that to their website. They have like the email templates so that they've got the workflows and the automation so they don't have to create all of that, right? It's just like literally all there for them. And we think, again, this is one of the things we get really excited about is like, how do you lower that barrier of entry? Because we know the
Yeah.
industry is growing, but it's not growing probably as fast as it could because it's like pretty hard to enter the industry right now, right?
Yeah.
And so if tech can help with that, we think that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially, I'm like, do you know how much time it would have saved? Like inputting all those like forms and workflows and the task list, because there's a lot of things that have to be developed on the back end. And that's one of those human processes that the human doesn't really need to be involved in that. Like technology
Yeah.
can take it over and then the human can like be more nuanced.
Exactly. And that's it. Like the nuance I think is important. They can copy it to their library, they can customize it, they can put their graphics in it, and they can really make it their own. But the like bulk work of like what should a task list look like when you send somebody to Disney? Like they
Right.
can probably just use that, right? What the agency has created. So yeah, we
Right.
think it's been pretty transformational.
Yeah. I don't think we could end a conversation without talking about like tech trends. I feel
Yes.
like obviously if we're having the tech guy here, we have to talk about tech trends. So, what are some trends that you're kind of seeing coming up in the next couple of years in the tech space within the travel industry or any predictions?
Ooh. I I mean it's like almost comical at this point, but I do think AI is going to continue to be the thing. I think we
Yeah,
are entering an era of artificial intelligence. I'm a big believer that it's not going to replace travel advisors, but
right.
there's I think if a if you are a client and you would choose between a travel advisor that's using artificial intelligence and the experience that you'll get from that in 3 years versus a travel advisor that's not, 9 times out of 10, you'll pick the combo. You'll pick
Hmm.
travel advisor plus artificial intelligence. They'll be faster, they'll be less error prone, they'll like just have kind of more of an efficiency. They'll be able to take on more clients. Artificial intelligence, I think, will be a great efficiency gain for this industry. And importantly, it'll let people focus on what won't change, which is the human aspect of travel and the connection and the relationships and the ability for an advisor to through a DMC connect with a real human in a country almost anywhere in the world. Like that's not going away with AI.
Right.
What I think AI will do is it'll get faster. You'll see these models start to be able to handle more and more. I think that there's a really interesting opportunity in exploring new modalities for some of the workflows that advisors use or do on a day-to-day basis. Like
Okay.
if you think about the process of building an itinerary today, it's like you sit down at your keyboard, or like God forbid you're trying to do it on an iPad or an iPhone or something while you're on the go, and you start to like point and click and drag and point and click and drag, and there's like 4 hours of that, right? As these language models get more efficient and bigger, you can imagine just being like, cool, I like hopped off a call with a client. I'm walking and talking to my phone. I'm like, I want to send them to the Waldorf Astoria in Orlando, right next to the Disney property. They're going to be at Disneyland on Thursday. They're going to be at Epcot on Friday. And the itinerary is just built for you,
Hmm.
like with your voice, right? And
Oh,
again, like it's not replacing your expertise, your knowledge, but like
right.
your expertise and knowledge is not dragging and dropping boxes around an itinerary. It's like crafting it.
Exactly. I love that you
Um,
say that.
so that's where we really think. And again, like we see people get hung up on some of these more complex tech topics like workflows and automations. Like you eventually you should just be able to like talk to the system and be like, hey, like I want to automate a happy birthday reminder to me like every time my client has a birthday. They
Mhm.
should be able to figure out how to do that for you. Um, so I think you'll see AI really start to transform this. I think you'll start to see it transform customer service on the supplier side. I had a meeting yesterday with the CEO of a very large supplier and was kind of walking them through how I use ChatGPT to help our support team onboard faster and like answer questions faster with our unique knowledge base. And I think you'll start to see more suppliers using that to be able to provide better service to you. Like this will improve efficiency across the board. And it's not scary. I did a whole presentation on how it's like, it's just chatting. Like it's not,
Exactly.
I really believe like AI is not going to replace, uh, AI is not going to take your job, but somebody who's using AI might,
Right.
right? And so like just be the person that's using AI and you'll be good, right? Like
Yep.
that is how you do the future. And it's not scary. It's not some robot. It's just like chat. It's just math behind the scenes. And if you combine your creativity, your experience, your like um, human relationship with your clients with artificial intelligence, like it's like a second brain and it will be
Yes.
really, really transformative for your business, I think. And we're happy to be leading the industry and like how do you abstract away all of these like different tools and things and like how do you just bring that into your workflow? And that's where we think we can play a really big role in making that accessible and approachable and integrated into your day-to-day work.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it never surprises me like if I ask something in ChatGPT and the information it spits out because I've communicated it with it so often and I'm like, how do you even know that? Like things that I may have talked about it 6 months ago, it will bring back up into the conversation and I'm like, well, this is great. It's like I'm really having a virtual assistant, a virtual assistant to like help
Exactly.
wherever I need help at.
Well, and if you haven't played around with the custom GPTs yet,
Oh,
that's the
yes.
like on major unlock. Like
Yes. That is a whole other level too. I love playing around
yeah,
with those. Now I do have a couple of fun rapid fire questions since it is
perfect.
Thanksgiving time, Black Friday time. I know we're recording this in the past, but will you be recording? Will you be cooking or attending Thanksgiving this year?
So a little bit of both. So Thanksgiving was always one of my favorite holidays
Okay.
ever. And my family from Chicago would always come up to where my parents are from in Midland, Michigan, and it would be like this big cousins thing. So for the first only two times my entire life have I not been in Midland for Thanksgiving, and this will actually be the second. I'm going to be in Maui with my in-laws
Ooh,
doing Thanksgiving there. So I think we're going to like pick up a kind of pre-made sort of cook Thanksgiving and do it that
nice.
way. So I'll kind of be cooking, but kind of be attending. So yes, I guess.
Okay, cool. That would be interesting to see like what a Maui Thanksgiving is like too.
I
Um,
know.
what is your favorite Thanksgiving side dish?
Ooh, I'm a big stuffing fan.
Okay.
I know that's maybe this is a little controversial in my family. My wife's gluten free, so like the stuffing has
Same.
changed a little bit over
Yeah.
time. But I would say big stuffing fan. And then I think probably I just have to go. The mashed potatoes and gravy is also pretty chill. Like those are
Okay.
also hard to go wrong with.
Okay. Any deals that you're personally looking to score this Black Friday?
Ooh, good question. I mean, my birthday's on November 30th, and so I'm always like, I'm under
Ooh.
orders to be limited in my Black Friday shopping. But we'll see. I'm always a sucker for a good tech deal. See if we can maybe pick up some like holiday gifts and things like that. But
Yeah.
nothing specific I have my eye on.
Okay.
But I've been known to impulse purchase on Black Friday, so we'll see what comes up.
Okay. What are you most thankful for right now?
Oh, this is it's such a timely question, actually. We were at a conference the other week, and is similar question to Molly, who's our head of product, asked like, what surprised you most about starting this company? And I think it's just like never cease to be like humbling and just like I'm incredibly thankful and grateful and like all the emotions for the team that we've put together at Tern, who like
Mhm.
wake up every day trying to build something that matters, and the way that they push me to be better, the way that I learn from them, the way that they impact our customers. Like it's just so fun, and it's
Mhm.
like I'm thankful every day to have like the best job in the world, because of the team that we get to do this with. So
Yeah.
super thankful for that, and then of course like very fortunate to have like just a great family around me and a great kind of community in my town of friends and family. And it's not something when we lived in London or San Francisco, we didn't have that. And so I'm like
Mhm.
very grateful and thankful for that, every day. So it's pretty nice. Feel very fortunate.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love that. I'm like, I love this segment because I feel like all the warm fuzzies around here.
Yeah.
Last question. What's a charity or cause that you're passionate about?
Ooh. Um, I'll give you two. One is I think like any of the humane societies, animals, like those types of things. Like we have a kind of a rescue dog, and it's like that's I think always got a special place in my heart. Um, and then my parents actually do a lot of work with this organization. It's called Fostering Hope of Michigan. It's a part of this like rural family organization nationally, and they work kind of volunteering and doing camps for abused and neglected kids. It's like a little heavy, but like the impact that you can see. They always say that like the impact that in one adult outside of the family showing somebody that they matter can change the entire trajectory of their life. And
Mhm.
like, I think that's really special, to be able to do that and trying to be that, um, kind of point for change. And like,
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I'll make sure to link that one up too. I'll Google it and I'll link it up over here in the show description. David, thank you so much for being here. We obviously have to talk just a little bit about the Turn Black Friday promotion before we
Yeah.
jump off too.
So if you're a travel advisor, one in the goodie bag is actually this white paper that we've been talking about. So like we just linked to that, so you can go
Yay!
download it. If you're looking for the link, it's in the goodie bag. And then two, we are doing, if you're an advisor, you're ready to make the jump to annual, even if you're using Turn today, or if you want to try it for the first time, we always run our biggest sale of the year. So it's $30 off our annual subscription, which makes Turn less than, I think it's like $28 a month is basically the
Nice.
equivalent, which considering what you get, we think is it's almost half what some of the other just itinerary builders out there charge. So pretty excited about that. So definitely check it out. And limited time only. We only do this sale at Black Friday to kind of celebrate the deal season, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I know I'm like, typically a lot of the people that are doing promotions today or this week don't run any other promotions through the rest of the year. So like this is like you're in. So all the links will be below. Super excited about that deal. So thank you for putting that out there, David. Any parting words before we jump off this time?
No, just appreciate you, Rita. Appreciate this community, and it's just a pleasure to be building. If anybody has questions or thoughts, my email is just david@tern.travel, TERN.travel. But it's been a highlight talking to you, and excited for some Black Friday deals here.
Yeah, likewise. I'm like, okay, let's get into it. Travel advisors, thanks so much for being here with us today. Again, all the important links are going to be in that show description, and we'll see you here back next week. Bye. Thanks for joining me on the podcast today. Remember to check out the show notes for all relevant links and resources from today's show. See you next time.